The first punch didn't hit my face. It hit my phone. At exactly 12 a.m., my daughter-in-law's name lit up the screen, Vivian, and before I could even say hello, she dropped it like a verdict. Your son died today. You get nothing. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. For a second, the whole house went silent, like even the walls were listening. What? Did you just say? I whispered. Her voice stayed cold, professional, almost bored. He was cremated already. Don't show up. Don't call anyone. And don't embarrass yourself. Cremated. That word hit harder than the sentence before it, because it wasn't grief talking. It was control. My hand tightened around the phone so hard my fingers went numb. Let me speak to my grandson, I said, forcing the words through a throat that suddenly felt too small. He's asleep, she snapped. And you're not family anymore. You're a problem. I swallowed, because I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. I'm his mother, I said. Tell me where... I already filed the paperwork, Vivian cut in. The bank knows, the notary knows. You have no right to anything. Then she added casually, like she was finishing a checklist. If you come to my house, I'll have you removed. And she hung up. Just like that. Like she'd called to cancel a subscription, not to erase my son from the world. I sat there in the dark, staring at the black screen until the reflection of my face looked like someone else's. Older, paler, stunned. My fever had been climbing all day, my throat raw, my body shaking with that sick heat that makes your thoughts slippery. My pantry was nearly empty. My checking account had been hovering near zero for weeks. And now apparently, my son was cremated already. Nathan had promised to call me Sunday. Nathan always called, even when he was busy. Even when Vivian made it obvious she didn't like my voice in their house. Even when my grandson, Leo, was the only one who still sounded happy to hear me. The word cremated kept repeating in my head like a cruel drum. I stood up, too fast, because the room tilted and my knees threatened to fold. I walked to the kitchen to drink water, because it was the only thing I could do that didn't feel like screaming. My hand reached for the cup, and then I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. Not the front door, the back door, the one nobody used. I froze so completely I could hear the refrigerator hum. Another set of knocks, slower this time, weak, like whoever it was didn't have much strength left. My stomach turned to ice. I stepped toward the back door like I was walking into a dream I didn't trust. The back door had 2 deadbolts. I had put them in after my husband died, after I learned how quiet the world can get when nobody's watching. Who is it? I called, and my voice came out thin. A breath on the other side, then a voice, rough, low, barely holding together. Mom, please, don't turn on the lights. My blood went cold, because Vivian had just told me my son was dead, and that voice was my son's. My fingers shook so hard I fumbled the first lock. Nathan, I whispered. Please, he said again, like the word hurt. Just open it. I unlocked the second bolt and pulled the door open a crack. He was there, standing in the shadow of my porch light, shoulders slumped, hair damp, face dirty like he'd been outside for hours. His eyes found mine and held, and I knew, before I fully understood anything, that Vivian had lied. He was alive, and he was terrified. I opened the door wider and caught him by the arm as he stumbled forward. Inside, I said. Not loud, not dramatic, just firm. Now. I guided him into the kitchen and shut the door with the same calm I used when I was trying not to scare Leo during thunderstorms. I slid both deadbolts into place and didn't let myself exhale until I heard the final click. Nathan leaned against the counter, breathing like he'd been running from something that didn't stop chasing when you stopped running. I didn't ask 100 questions at once. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I grabbed the cleanest towel I had, poured water into a bowl, and set it on the table. Sit, I said. He lowered himself into the chair like his body had forgotten how to relax. I pressed the towel into his hands. Drink first. He took one sip and winced, like swallowing pulled on something deep inside him. Mom, he said, voice breaking. She told you I was dead. She told me you were cremated, I said, and that I get nothing. He closed his eyes for a second, and when he opened them, there was shame in his face. Heavy and familiar. I'm sorry, he whispered. I should have listened to you. I moved slowly, so my hands wouldn't tremble more than they already were. I wiped the dirt from his cheek, checked his arms, his shoulders, his head, careful, gentle, as if he might shatter if I touched him wrong. Who did this? I asked quietly. Nathan's jaw tightened. Vivian, he said, and someone she's been seeing. The room seemed to shrink around those words. He looked toward my window as if expecting headlights to cut through the curtains at any second. They set it up, he said. A crash. They wanted it to look real. They wanted me gone. My grip on the towel tightened. Why? I asked, even though part of me already knew. He swallowed. Insurance, the house, my accounts, my company shares, everything she could turn into cash fast. I sat across from him, shoulders squared, the way I used to sit in parent-teacher meetings when people tried to talk down to me. Start from the beginning, I said, and don't skip anything that sounds small. Small details are what trap liars. Nathan's eyes flicked to mine, like he remembered, suddenly, who raised him. He nodded. 3 weeks ago, he began, I found messages on her phone. She wasn't careful anymore. She thought I was too tired to notice. I didn't interrupt. I didn't gasp. I just listened. She kept saying we needed to reset, that she wanted one last drive, like when we were younger. I thought maybe she felt guilty. He let out a short, bitter breath. It wasn't guilt. It was rehearsal. He told me about a quiet road, about stopping where nobody could hear you call for help, about a moment when his own wife's face didn't look like a wife's face anymore. It looked like a stranger's. I played dead, he said, voice low. I did it because I realized if I didn't, there wouldn't be a second chance. My throat burned. And after? I asked. They must have assumed it worked, he said. Because she called you. She needed you officially out. She needed you isolated. If you believe I'm dead, you won't fight. You'll grieve. He stared at the table like it was the only solid thing in the world. She's planning something big, he said. And the worst part is, she thinks she already won. I lifted my chin. No, I said. The worst part is she thinks she can humiliate me while she does it. Nathan looked up. And she can't, I added. Not anymore. His eyes filled with something that wasn't tears. Hope. Thin, shaken, yet still alive. I leaned closer, lowered my voice. We're going to let her keep believing you're dead, I said. For now. Nathan's eyes widened. Mom, listen, I cut in gently. If she thinks you're alive, she'll vanish. She'll destroy evidence. She'll move money. But if she thinks you're ashes, she'll get careless. Nathan's breathing slowed, just a little. And when she gets careless, I said, we collect proof. He stared at me. You have a plan? He whispered. I didn't smile. I didn't boast. I just reached into my kitchen drawer and pulled out an old manila folder. Empty, plain, unremarkable. And set it on the table between us like a promise. I have a beginning, I said. And I have your life. Before he could answer, my phone buzzed in the silence. A notification. Unknown number. Then a second buzz. An incoming call. And I knew, without looking, it was her again. Vivian. Calling to tighten the leash. I slid my phone across the table toward Nathan and whispered, stay quiet. Let her think I'm broken. Then I answered and forced my voice to shake. Hello? Vivian's tone was almost sweet. Good, she said. You picked up. Now listen carefully, Eleanor, because tomorrow we're finalizing everything. And right then, before she could say more, Nathan's hand shot out and grabbed my wrist hard, eyes locked on mine with sudden panic. Because from the hallway window, we both saw it. A pair of headlights. Stopping outside my house. Good, Vivian said again, her voice smooth as polished glass. You picked up. Now listen carefully, Eleanor, because tomorrow we're finalizing everything. I kept my eyes on the thin strip of light creeping under my living room curtain. The headlights outside didn't move. They just sat there, bright, patient. Nathan's fingers tightened around my wrist. Not painful, but urgent. A warning without words. I swallowed and let my voice wobble the way Vivian expected. Finalizing what? I whispered. The paperwork, she said, as if she was talking to a child who couldn't understand time. The bank, the estate, the house. My attorney wants your signature confirming you won't contest anything. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so bold it was almost artistic. My signature? I repeated softly. Yes, Vivian said. It's procedural. It makes things easier. Easier to steal, easier to erase, easier to lock me out with a smile. I let out a shaky breath like I was trying not to cry. I don't have money for lawyers, I said. Vivian gave a quiet little sound, half sigh, half satisfaction. That's not my problem, she replied. You had your chances. Nathan made his choices. I clenched my jaw and turned slightly so my body shielded Nathan from the window. Where is Leo? I asked. Let me talk to my grandson. A pause. Then Vivian's voice sharpened. Don't start that. I told you he's sleeping. And you're not going to confuse him with drama. Drama. She tried to murder my son and called it drama. I forced myself to whisper, I just want to say goodbye. Goodbye, Vivian said, almost amused. You can say goodbye to the past, Because tomorrow you're signing and then you're done. The headlights outside flickered, as if the driver shifted in the seat. Vivian continued. Also, don't go calling anyone. Not family, not friends. People will talk. And I'm not tolerating a spectacle. My mind moved fast, but my face stayed calm. What time tomorrow? I asked. 10, she said. At my house. Don't be late. And Eleanor, if you show up with anyone, I'll make sure you regret it. She hung up. The moment the call ended, I stood up and crossed the kitchen in 2 steps. I turned off every light that could be seen from the street. Nathan whispered, "She sent someone." "I know," I whispered back. We stood in the dark, listening. The car didn't drive away. It stayed, watching. Nathan's breathing turned shallow. "They're checking," he murmured. "If I ran here, if you called police, if you're telling anyone." I pressed a finger to my lips. Then I walked to my old hallway closet and pulled out the one thing people forget older women own, a heavy wooden cane. Not because I needed it, because my joints only complained when it rained, but because it gave my hands something solid. I moved to the living room window and looked through the curtain without letting my face show. A dark sedan. No license plate light. Engine running. My stomach hardened into something colder than fear. Vivian wasn't grieving. Vivian was managing a crime scene. I stepped back and looked at Nathan. "Go to the laundry room," I whispered. "Behind the dryer, there's space. Stay there. Don't breathe loud." He hesitated. "Mom." "Now," I said softly but sharp. He moved fast, limping slightly, disappearing down the hall. I returned to the kitchen table, grabbed my phone, and opened a blank notes page. Time, 12:07 a.m. Vivian call, demands signature, threatened consequences, dark sedan outside house. When you're dealing with someone who thinks they're untouchable, you don't just survive, you document. A minute later, there was a knock. Not the weak knock Nathan used, a firm knock, confident, like a man who expected to be obeyed. I waited. The knock came again, harder. I went to the back door, not the front, and kept my voice steady. "Who is it?" A man's voice answered, casual, too casual. "Ma'am, you okay in there?" We heard, crying. Liar. No one heard crying. Vivian had called from miles away. I kept my face neutral, even though my blood felt hot. "I'm fine," I said. "Go home." Silence. Then the man tried another angle, his voice sharpening. "Open the door, ma'am. We just want to check on you." I smiled. Small, invisible in the dark. "You're checking because someone told you to," I said quietly. "Tell them I'm alive." Silence again. Then a soft laugh, like he couldn't believe I was talking back. "You sure you don't need help?" he asked. "I do," I replied. "I need you to leave." Another pause, and then footsteps, backing away. An engine rev. The sedan pulled off slowly, like it wanted me to know it had been there. When the street went quiet again, I locked both deadbolts and leaned my forehead against the wood for one long second. Then I turned and walked straight to the laundry room. Nathan was crouched behind the dryer, breathing carefully like he'd been trained for this. I knelt beside him, touched his shoulder. They left. His eyes lifted, and I saw something raw in them. "How is she doing this?" he whispered. "How is she this calm?" I didn't soften it for him. "Because she thinks you're already gone," I said. "And because she thinks I'm weak." Nathan's jaw clenched. "Tomorrow," he said. "She wants you at her house." "Yes," I replied. "And I'm going." His head snapped up. "No, Mom, no. I'm not going as her victim," I said. "I'm going as her witness." I stood, walked to the kitchen, and opened the junk drawer until I found it. An old digital voice recorder. Small, dusty, forgotten. I placed it on the table. Nathan stared. "You still have that?" "I used it for church notes," I said. "Now I'll use it for truth." He swallowed. "And Leo?" he asked, voice cracking. "If she's this cruel, what about my son?" That question hit me in the chest harder than Vivian's midnight call. I forced myself to keep breathing. "We bring Leo back," I said. "But we do it clean, legal, with proof that makes judges stop blinking." Nathan lowered his head. "She said I made my choices," he whispered. "Mom, I didn't—" I reached out and held his face between my hands, gentle, controlled, like I was reminding him he was real. "Listen to me," I said. "You survived. That means you still get choices." He closed his eyes, fighting the tremble in his mouth. I released him and picked up my phone. "There's one person," I said, "who will move faster than fear." Nathan looked up. "My lawyer," I said. "Robert Hale." Nathan blinked. "You still know him?" "I met him when your father died," I answered. "He doesn't like bullies, and he hates paperwork that smells like fraud." I called Robert. It rang twice. "Eleanor?" His voice came through, surprised. It's late. I need you, I said. No drama, no long story, just steel. Tonight, silence. Then his tone changed. Tell me only this, he said. Are you safe? I looked at my back door. The deadbolts, the darkness. My son breathing quietly in my laundry room. For now, I said. But someone is trying to sign me out of my own family. Robert exhaled once, sharp. Don't go to her house alone, he said immediately. Don't sign anything. Don't answer more calls without recording. I'll be there at sunrise. He didn't ask questions yet, because good lawyers know the first rule of a trap. You don't warn the predator. After I hung up, Nathan stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time in years. You're not scared, he said. I'm sick, I replied. I'm broke, and I'm exhausted. Then I looked him dead in the eye. But I'm still your mother. He nodded slowly. And in that nod, something shifted. We weren't hiding anymore. We were preparing. I spent the rest of the night making a list. Names, times, phrases Vivian used, threats, claims about the notary and the bank. I printed nothing because printers talk. I wrote everything by hand because ink doesn't forget. At 6:12 a.m., the sun just starting to lighten the edges of the sky, my phone buzzed again. Bank alert. Account temporarily restricted. Nathan saw it and went pale. She's already freezing things, he whispered. And before I could respond, another call came in. Vivian again. I answered and forced my voice to sound small. Hello? Vivian didn't bother pretending this time. I know someone was at your house last night, she said. My stomach dropped, but my face didn't. And I know you didn't open the door. A beat of silence. Then she spoke the line that told me she wasn't just greedy. She was dangerous. So here's what's going to happen, Vivian said softly. You will come at 10, you will sign, and if you don't... She paused, letting the threat breathe. I'll make sure nobody believes you about anything. Ever. I stared at the bank alert on my screen, then at the manila folder on my table, then down the hall, where my son, allegedly cremated, was standing in the shadows, alive. I kept my voice trembling on purpose. Oh, okay, I whispered. Vivian exhaled like she'd won. Good, she said. See you at 10. She hung up. Nathan stepped forward. Mom. I raised my hand. 10 o'clock, I said calmly. At her house. He swallowed hard. What do we do? I picked up the recorder, slid it into my pocket, and opened the manila folder. We do what she never expected, I said. We walk straight into her trap and turn it into ours. And at that exact moment, someone knocked again. This time, not on my door. On my front window, 3 sharp taps, like they didn't care who heard. Nathan's eyes widened, and I realized Vivian wasn't waiting until 10. She was moving up the timeline. Right now, the knock on my front window came again. 3 taps, sharp and impatient, like whoever stood outside already believed my house belonged to them. Nathan froze in the hallway shadow, alive and silent, exactly the opposite of what Vivian had announced to the world. I didn't panic. I did what women like Vivian never notice until it's too late. I became boring. I shuffled to the living room with my cane, opened the curtain an inch, and saw a man in a baseball cap staring straight at the glass. He lifted his chin like he expected me to obey. I cracked the window just enough for my voice to pass through. Yes? Ma'am, he said, polite in a way that sounded rehearsed. We're doing a welfare check. From who? I asked. He hesitated a fraction of a second. That's private. I gave him a small nod like I accepted that answer. Like I was a confused, lonely older woman who didn't understand how the world worked. Thank you, I said softly. I'm fine. He leaned closer. Mind opening the door so we can verify? No, I replied, still soft, still calm. I don't open doors to strangers. The man's jaw tightened. Ma'am, I'm fine, I repeated, then closed the window and locked it. That was the moment I knew Vivian wasn't just trying to steal. She was trying to control the narrative. If I opened that door, if Nathan made one sound, if anyone saw him, she'd have a new story by noon. And her story would be, Eleanor is unstable. Eleanor is confused. Eleanor is lying. So I did not give her a story. I gave her silence. The man outside stood there a second longer, then walked away with the same slow confidence the sedan had used the night before. Like this was routine. Like someone had paid him to keep me afraid. I waited until his footsteps disappeared. Then I went straight to Nathan and whispered, Pack nothing. His eyes flicked to mine, confused. What? Pack nothing, I repeated. Not a bag, not a jacket. Nothing that makes it look like we're moving or running. He swallowed. But, because we're not running, I said. We're walking into her house like I'm still broken. At 9:40 a.m., I put on a plain gray sweater and a black coat. I tied my hair back and slid on oversized sunglasses, the kind that hide red eyes and sharper thoughts. Then I reached into the drawer and took out 3 things: the digital recorder, the manila folder, a small spare phone I kept for emergencies. Nathan watched, breath tight. "You're really going?" "Yes," I said. "And you're staying here?" His face tightened. "No, Mom. I can't just..." "You can," I said quietly. "Because if you go, she'll see you. And if she sees you, she disappears. And Leo disappears with her." That name, my grandson's, stopped him cold. He looked down, then nodded once, hard, like swallowing a stone. I leaned closer. "You don't move. You don't look out windows. If anyone knocks, you don't exist." He whispered, "What if she comes back with police?" "Then you still don't exist," I said. "Not until we have proof that makes the truth louder than her paperwork." I left my house at 9:52 a.m. The air was cool, my fever still sitting behind my eyes like a heavy pressure. But I drove anyway, slow, steady, both hands on the wheel. Vivian's neighborhood was clean and bright and expensive in a way that always felt slightly hostile to people who were struggling. Manicured hedges, fresh paint, cameras on doorbells like jewelry. When I pulled up, Vivian was already outside, standing in her driveway with Leo beside her. My stomach clenched. Leo looked smaller than I remembered. His hair was brushed too neatly. He held a toy car in one hand and stared at the ground like he'd been told not to look up. Vivian's lips curled into something that almost resembled a smile. "Eleanor," she said. "You came." I stepped out slowly, cane in hand, shoulders slightly hunched, performing exactly what she expected. "I came," I said quietly. She opened the front door with a flourish, like a hostess welcoming a guest. Not a woman who had just announced my son's death. Inside, her living room looked staged. Too neat. Too perfect. Like nobody had ever cried there. A man in a suit stood up from the couch when we entered. Mid-40s, expensive watch. Cold eyes. "Mrs. Eleanor Hart?" he asked. Vivian answered for me. "Yes, that's her." The lawyer offered his hand. "I'm Mark Leland. I represent Mrs. Vivian Hart." I did not take his hand. I nodded once. His mouth tightened as if he wasn't used to women my age refusing polite rituals. Vivian pointed to a chair at the dining table. "Sit. We'll do this quickly." I sat. Vivian sat across from me. Her lawyer placed a folder in front of me. Thick, official, heavy with printed confidence. "This document," he began, "confirms you will not contest any estate matters and that you relinquish any claim." "I haven't seen my son," I interrupted softly. Vivian's eyes flickered. "We already went through this. I want to see proof," I said. "I want to see the death certificate." The lawyer hesitated, just slightly. Vivian's jaw tightened and she leaned forward like she was speaking to a stubborn child. "We don't have time for your emotions," she said. "Sign." I lowered my sunglasses enough for her to see my eyes. "I'm not signing anything," I said. "Until I see proof." Vivian smiled. Tight, controlled. Then she stood and walked to a cabinet, pulled out a document, and slapped it on the table. "There," she said. "Happy?" My heart pounded, but my hands stayed steady. I glanced down. It looked real. Stamped. Typed. Official. But something was off. Not the words. The timing. "Cremated already," I whispered as if I was repeating her cruelty to myself. Vivian's smile widened a fraction. "Yes. It was... necessary." I picked up the paper and held it closer. Then I did something Vivian didn't expect. I asked her lawyer one calm legal question. "Which funeral home processed the cremation?" I asked. The lawyer blinked. "That's not relevant." "It is," I said, "because I'm his mother." Vivian cut in fast. "It's done. Stop digging." I tilted my head, still calm. "So tell me the name." Vivian's nostrils flared. "Riverside Memorial," she snapped. I nodded once, like I accepted it. Then I slid the death certificate back across the table. "And the notary?" I asked. "Which notary registered the will?" Vivian's eyes hardened. "I told you. Everything is handled." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Mrs. Hart, the notary is filed in the documentation." "Say it out loud," I said quietly, "because I wanted it recorded." Vivian glanced at the lawyer like, "Don't you dare." He looked down at the page. "Notary, Jenna Klein." I repeated it softly. "Jenna Klein." Then I reached into my coat pocket, slowly, visibly, and pulled out my phone, as if I was too weak to even hold it properly. Vivian's eyes narrowed. "What are you doing?" "I'm calling my pastor," I lied. "I need prayer." Vivian rolled her eyes. "Fine. Make it fast." I tapped my screen with shaking fingers, pretending to dial. But I wasn't calling my pastor. I was opening my camera. And I took a photo of every page on the table. The certificate, the notary line, the lawyer's folder. Vivian leaned forward. No pictures. I'm old, I murmured. I forget things. She reached across the table to grab my phone. And that was when the recorder in my pocket caught her voice, sharp and clear. Stop acting like you have rights. You don't. I pulled my phone back calmly. Then show me Leo. Vivian's expression flicked. Irritation, then calculation. She stood and walked to the hallway. Leo, she called, too sweet. Come here. Leo stepped into the dining room, eyes down. When he saw me, his face changed. Like relief tried to rise and got pushed down again. Grandma, he whispered. My throat tightened. I reached out my hand. Hi, baby. Vivian stepped behind him, a hand on his shoulder like a leash. Say hello, she instructed. Leo's little hand touched my fingers, quick and nervous, then pulled away as if he was afraid to do more. I looked at Vivian. He's scared. Vivian smiled. He's fine. I turned back to Leo. Do you know where your dad is? Vivian's fingers tightened on his shoulder. Leo's eyes flicked up, toward her, then down again. I don't know, he whispered. Vivian's voice snapped. Leo, go to your room. Leo hesitated, then turned and walked away quickly. And as he disappeared down the hall, I saw it. On the hallway table, Vivian's phone, unlocked, screen lit. A message preview popped up from a contact labeled only as A. Did she sign? Also, hospital check came back clear. My blood went cold, because that meant they weren't just celebrating. They were still checking hospitals, still making sure my son was truly dead. Vivian followed my gaze and lunged for her phone, but I had already seen it. I leaned back in my chair, voice soft as silk. No, I whispered. This isn't over. Vivian's face tightened. What did you see? I stood slowly, cane in hand, acting weaker than I felt. I'll be back, I said. Vivian stepped forward, blocking my path. You're not leaving until you sign. I lifted my chin. Touch me, I said quietly. And you'll finally give me a reason to call the police. Her eyes flashed. Hate, panic. Then she stepped aside, forcing a smile like she hadn't just tried to trap me at her table. Go, she said through her teeth. But don't come back with ideas. I walked out without rushing, because rushing looks guilty. Outside, I got into my car, hands steady on the wheel. And as I drove away, my phone vibrated. A text message. From an unknown number. One line. If you keep asking questions, the boy gets hurt. My breath caught. Because now Vivian wasn't just stealing. She was threatening my grandson. And I knew, in that moment, the next move couldn't be slow. It had to be decisive. Block 4, 600 words. The funeral lie. The hidden signal. By sunrise, my house was quiet in the most terrifying way. Quiet like a secret being held by the walls. My son was asleep on the couch, wrapped in blankets, his breathing shallow but steady. His bruised knuckles were still stained with dirt from the roadside. The smell of disinfectant and burnt fabric clung to the air. And then my phone rang again. Her name flashed across the screen. My daughter-in-law. I answered on the second ring, forcing my voice to crack like a woman who had not stopped crying. Hello? She didn't soften, not even for a second. It's still at 10, she said. Don't be late, and please, no scenes. People will be there. People. Like my son was a performance she was managing. I understand, I whispered. Good, she replied. And another thing. Ricardo had a will. Everything goes to me. The house, the accounts, the insurance. You won't receive anything. She said it the way a cashier says your card was declined. My hand tightened around the phone so hard my nails hurt. Okay, I murmured. I just want to say goodbye. You can, she said, from a distance. Then she hung up. I stood in my kitchen staring at the dead screen. My whole body was shaking, not from grief now, but from rage that had nowhere to go. I looked at my son. He was alive. He was right there, and she was already stealing his death like it belonged to her. So I made a decision. If she wanted a funeral so badly, I would attend, but not as a broken mother. As a witness. I dressed in my simplest black clothes. I tied my hair low. I put on large sunglasses so no one could read my eyes. Before leaving, I knelt beside my son and pressed my hand against his shoulder. Stay hidden, I whispered. No windows, no calls, no sound. His eyes opened just a slit. He nodded once, and I left my house like I was walking into a trap. The chapel was crowded, too crowded. People I didn't recognize hugged each other and cried as if this lie had become their truth. A sealed coffin sat at the front, draped in flowers. Above it, my son's smiling photo, the same one I had on my shelf. And there she was. My daughter-in-law, dressed head to toe in black, a veil over her face, crying into someone's shoulder with perfect timing. When she saw me, she crossed the room quickly and wrapped her arms around me. "Thank you for coming," she whispered loud enough for others to hear. Her hug was tight and performative, like she wanted everyone to see she was the grieving widow who welcomed the poor, heartbroken mother. I held my arms stiff at my sides and whispered, "Where is Miguel?" "My mother has him," she said. "He's too sensitive to walk around. My grandson." Being managed like a prop in her story. The priest spoke about loss and love and endings. Every word felt like a knife. Not because my son was dead, but because they were burying him while he was still breathing. And then I saw him. A man in a dark suit slipped into the back row. Clean hair, sharp posture, eyes that didn't look sad. He looked pleased. My daughter-in-law noticed him too. Their eyes met for half a second. Quick, practiced, like they'd done it before. A signal. I didn't move. I didn't react. I just memorized his face. After the service, people filed out. She received condolences like tips. When the crowd thinned, she stepped outside, alone. The man followed. I stayed behind a tree near the parking lot, my heart pounding like it wanted to expose me. They spoke fast. She handed him a thick envelope. He slid it into his jacket like he was collecting his payment. Then, like the world belonged to them, he pulled her close and kissed her. Right there, beside the chapel where everyone believed my son was being mourned. I tasted bile. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I watched. Because now I knew, this wasn't grief. This was a crime. And she had no idea the truth was waiting at my house. Alive. And ready. Block 5, 600 words. The trap in her living room. The next morning she texted me like nothing happened. "I packed some of Ricardo's things. You can come pick them up." Of course she did. She wanted to look generous. She wanted to look innocent. She wanted control. I agreed immediately, and I planned every step like I was walking into a courtroom, not a house. Before I left, I checked on my son. He was awake now, sitting carefully, his face pale but determined. His arm was wrapped tighter after a discreet doctor finally came and confirmed the fracture. "You don't have to go," he rasped. "I do," I said. "Because she thinks you're gone. That confidence makes people careless." I slipped a small voice recorder into my purse, the kind I used to keep for grocery lists and reminders. Then I drove to the house that used to be my son's. She opened the door with a soft smile, like she was a saint. "Come in," she said. "I'm so sorry." Sorry. Her living room was spotless. Too spotless. Like she had erased him overnight. On the coffee table, her phone sat face up. Unlocked. My pulse jumped. She offered me coffee. I nodded. My hands shook, so I held the cup with both palms like I needed warmth. She talked in the same cold, careful voice. "I know the will is hard for you," she said. "But Ricardo wanted to protect us. Me and Miguel." I stared at her mouth. How easily she said my grandson's name while lying through her teeth. "I understand," I whispered. I didn't understand. I endured. Then I pretended to sway like my body was giving up. "Oh, sorry," I murmured, touching my forehead. "I haven't eaten. I feel dizzy." Her eyes sharpened, just for a second. "You can use the bathroom," she said. I walked down the hall slowly, but I didn't go into the bathroom. I stood behind the cracked door and listened. She picked up the phone immediately. Her fingers moved fast. She was texting. I couldn't see the screen, but I didn't need to. She was checking something. Or someone. Then her phone rang. She looked annoyed and stood up. "It's the lawyer," she said. "I have to take this." She stepped onto the back patio and closed the glass door. That was the opening. I moved like I was stealing oxygen. I picked up her phone, still unlocked. Messages. I searched a name, and there it was. Thread after thread, long and detailed, like evil had been rehearsing for months. Plans, money, insurance, timing. Then a message that froze my blood. If he survived, finish it. My fingers went numb. I didn't read everything. I didn't have time. I forwarded the entire conversation to my own number. Screenshots, photos, everything. Then I deleted my scent trail, returned the phone to the exact angle it had been before, and sat back down. My chest was tight. My throat burned. She came back inside, smiling again. "Everything okay?" "Yes," I said softly. "I just needed a moment." She handed me a box of my son's clothes like she was giving me a charity donation. I took it. I thanked her. I walked out of that house with a box in my arms and evidence in my phone. I drove 2 blocks away, pulled over, and finally let myself breathe. Because now I didn't just suspect. Now I could prove. and she had no idea she'd handed me the weapon that would destroy her. Block 6, 600 words. He's alive. The room goes silent. When I got home, my son was waiting, sitting upright like pain had turned into fuel. I set the box down and held out my phone with shaking hands. "I have it," I whispered. "All of it." He scrolled. His face changed as he read, anger, disbelief, heartbreak, and then something colder. "They planned it," he said. "They planned my death like a business deal." I nodded. "And they're still watching hospitals, still checking." He swallowed hard. "Miguel, I saw the way she talked about him," I said. "Like he's a burden." We didn't waste time. We called a lawyer, one we trusted, someone who would move fast and keep us protected. He came that same evening, read everything, listened to my son's account, documented his injuries with photos, and built a plan that didn't rely on hope. "Evidence is strong," the lawyer said, "but we need them caught admitting it, clean, recorded." So we set the trap where criminals always expose themselves: money. The messages showed a payout coming, a meeting, a handoff. They thought they were celebrating. We turned it into an arrest. The day came. My son wore a cap low over his face and a mask to hide the bruising. He stayed out of sight until the moment was right. Police were placed nearby, cameras ready. The lawyer calm as stone. In the hotel room monitor, we watched her arrive with a suitcase. She kissed the man in the room like she had already won. Then she opened the suitcase. Stacks of cash. He grinned. "So it worked?" he said. "He's gone." She laughed. Actually laughed. "He's dead," she said. No one suspected a thing. His mother is grieving like a fool. My stomach twisted. Then the man asked, "You're sure he didn't survive?" She rolled her eyes. "Survive?" she scoffed. "After what we did? He's ash." That was the moment. The officer beside us nodded once. "Now," he said. We moved fast. The hallway felt endless. My son's breathing sounded loud inside his mask. The door opened. Police stepped in first. Badges, commands, weapons drawn. The man froze. My daughter-in-law screamed like she was the victim. "I'm a widow!" she cried. "This is a mistake!" Then my son stepped forward. He pulled off the mask. The room went dead. Her mouth fell open. Her eyes went wide, glassy, terrified, like she had just seen a ghost walk out of a coffin. "No," she whispered. "No, you're dead." He finished calmly. "That's what you told my mother." She stumbled backward, hitting the bed with her knees. He didn't shout. He didn't lunge. He didn't give her the drama she deserved. He just held his phone up. "Everything you wrote," he said. "Everything you planned. You handed it to my mother like she was too stupid to fight back." The man tried to run. Police slammed him down. Handcuffs clicked. My daughter-in-law started crying, real crying now, not the funeral performance kind. She tried to reach my son, to explain, to twist the story. He took one step back. "You killed our family for money," he said, "and you almost killed me to cash it." Then he looked at me. "Mama, it's over." I pressed my hand to my chest because my heart felt too big for my body. As they dragged her out, she turned her head and hissed, "You should have died." My son answered with one sentence, quiet and final, but I didn't. And for the first time since that midnight call, I felt something stronger than fear. Relief. Because justice didn't arrive as a miracle. It arrived because a mother refused to be humiliated into silence, and because the dead man beside her chose to stand up and speak.